the serious downside of this green tyranny that you've written about so much is what we're seeing in Sri Lanka, what we're seeing in the Netherlands, the way that governments are going so hell for leather for this net zero madness that they're actually now not only damaging the economy but damaging people's livelihoods.
I'm just going to have an interruption. No, sorry about
Oh, hello. Who's that? What a lovely dog.
She's not so keen on the hot weather.
No, no, you've got to take the dogs out early and take them out late as well.
No, you're absolutely right about the situation in Sri Lanka. Who they swallowed the green Kool-Aid really badly and banned pesticides, they banned fertilizers, and they've created a huge disaster in that country. So yes, and what's happening in the Netherlands with farmers, because basically you have to close down farming. But you have to close down the way farming has been done over the last few decades. And that is incredibly disruptive. And you talked about the Tory leadership election, and what we're not hearing from them is these Conservative candidates, basically they've got a choice. They can either be for net zero or for low taxes. They can't be both. And none of them so far have wised up to that fundamental choice they've got to make.
Yes. And that is the thing that surprises me the most, because surely if you wanted to become a popular politician at the moment, outside of the kind of, the I suppose what you might call the Zach Goldsmith arena, where you've got so much money that you don't really care how much they charge you for anything, people who live in most of this country do not care about net zero. They might, if you ask them in a poll, say, well, of course we'd like to help the planet, of course we don't want to kill the planet off, of course if we could, we would drive an electric car. But most people, generally speaking, couldn't care less.
Yeah, and also politicians and the media have not been honest about the costs of net zero. Basically, they're saying you can save the planet and actually you're going to be better off. It's an opportunity. But actually net zero is the biggest cost thing on the agenda, and it will basically kills off economic growth. And the British economy hasn't grown since 2008. Essentially, it's been flatlining since 2008. That is the real economic problem this country faces.
Yeah, it is ludicrous that no one really in mainstream politics is addressing it, though, isn't it?
It's explicable because the power of the green lobby, basically it's become, I mean, if you question it, you're a Holocaust denier, right, or whatever. So there is, and the Greens are incredibly well funded. There's a lot of climate foundation money coming in from multi-billion-dollar US climate funds. The city's all signed up to this because green virtue is kind of, you can be a multi-millionaire and show actually you care about the planet by saying you believe in net zero. So there are a lot of interest groups that are really pushing this stuff. So that's why they won't. And until we see the consequences, the economic consequences, which we're now seeing, that because we're not allowed to frack, we're seeing gas prices go through the roof. Until those really bite, you won't really see politicians change on this.
I mean, because a lot of people, I know the two countries obviously cannot be compared in all sorts of ways. However, the problems that they have in Sri Lanka are not that different from the problems that we have here. Perhaps they're a bit more acute and people there have a bit less money. But by and large, the rising cost of living is what is driving it all.
Yeah, there's a sort of iron law in this, which is the less money you have, the less wealth you have, the worse you're affected by climate policies.
Yeah.
And these policies hit the least well-off hardest. And that's something, again, that you won't find politicians fessing up to.
No. And paradoxically, of course, one of the arguments given for why we need net zero and why we need to get greener is that we will be displacing and upsetting more economies around the world and more kind of, developing countries if we don't do it. Well, guess what? Now it would appear that the policy itself is actually more harmful than the cure.
That's absolutely right. The policy is an anti-economic growth, anti-consumption policy. It makes people poor. And the thing to remember is that the UK's carbon dioxide emissions, are less than 1% of global emissions. So what we do in this country has no impact globally on the weather around the world.
Shocking. Absolutely unbelievable.